Folks, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves is now out if you pre-ordered the game, and I have had a review copy of the game for about a week now. I've put a lot of time into it, and I wanted to talk about my final thoughts on how the game ended up as a product, whether I think it's worth buying, and what I think are the big positives and negatives working towards this game, because I think I was quite critical of this game during the 2 open betas. Like, we had some issues like the menus being really confusing and having lots of loading. We'll talk about the menus later. But the other major issue was matchmaking times. In the first beta, it took a really long time to find matches, multiple minutes. And then in the second beta, it was still a problem, but they did patch it, and it seemed to massively improve. But let's find out in the final game, is matchmaking gonna be fast? Let's search and time it and find out how long it takes. Hey guys, 16 seconds. Let's go. Okay, I'll play this guy for the one time, but I'm going to cut it out of the video. All right, we got him. Okay. Yeah, the connection was good. I would say overall, you know, the matchmaking does seem to be fixed based on the brief experiences I had in my review build, and all of the online matches I've had so far have had good connections as well. So the online seems to be fixed, which is like a major deal breaker. So thank goodness they fixed that. But let's talk about the other things in the game that were not part of the beta and talk about how valuable I think these modes are. So the first one here, kind of the main single player mode of the game here, is Episodes of Southtown. I would say this is the equivalent of SF6 World Tour. But instead of like a big open world where you have like your custom avatar, you pick a character, and then you can kind of traverse around these menus. So I would say it reminds me a little bit of like Soul Calibur Weapon Master mode. As you can see at the top, it does have an experience system. So as you fight different fights, you're going to get XP, you're going to get more powerful. Certain matches have special stipulations. So you can see in this one, I'm always overheated. That's like the stipulation for this match to make it harder. But in exchange, I'm going to get some extra XP, I guess. But so yeah, there's stuff like that. But I will say none of the sort of extra stipulations have been that interesting. It's always stuff like, yeah, you're permanently overheated, or you have infinite supers, or you have to kill with a special for it to count. Kind of stuff like that, which I find, you know, it's better than nothing, but it's not as interesting as in like Soul Calibur Weapon Master mode. They would have stuff like the floor is lava. If you land on the floor, you explode, or there would be like a bomb that you pass back and forth between the opponent by hitting each other. They had like really interesting stuff in that mode. This doesn't really have anything on that level, but there are a couple fights, you know, like here you can see you have to fight a bunch of enemies in a row, and on some of these, your health doesn't come back, so those can be challenging as well. I definitely thought this mode was not bad. I thought it was pretty fun. Each character only takes like an hour, so it is pretty short. But if you want to do all the characters, you know, that kind of adds up. And once you beat the kind of main story with the character, and there is a story, although it is not voiced in this mode, which was a little bit disappointing. But yeah, there is like a little mini story for each character when you do their thing, which is pretty interesting. You can also increase the difficulty to Southtown Plus, where everything is higher level. You know, I kind of wish Southtown Plus was a little bit more interesting, but to be honest, it's mostly just like a grind. Like, as you can see, everything is really high level, and then there is a secret final boss that I won't spoil for you guys, but as you can see, it's level 90. I'm only level 43 after playing this for like an hour or so, so I would have to grind a lot to get up to level 90. I tried beating it at level 43 and it basically like one-shot me, so no, that's not going to happen. So yeah, New Game Plus, I like that it's there, you know, if you want an additional challenge. But at the end of the day, it is kind of just a lot of fighting AIs over and over and watching your XP bar go up. It's a little bit grindy, but overall, I do like this mode. In fact, I kind of like this mode better than World Tour and SF6. World Tour and SF6 is obviously like a way bigger spectacle with the huge open world. There's more stuff to do. But I also felt that mode kind of had like a lot of busy work. It was a little boring for me. It felt like repetitive, and it took a long time to actually do anything. Where Episodes of Southtown is nice and quick. You get a nice little bite-sized story for your character, and yeah, you start out feeling really weak, but as you level up, you unlock more stuff, so it's pretty fun. The other main single-player mode is, of course, Arcade. And normally I wouldn't really comment on like arcade mode in a fighting game. It doesn't really interest me. I'm more of an online guy, obviously. But I know for SNK in particular, the hardcore fans really care about like the story in arcade, and they closely pay attention to what happens between every game. So the arcade modes are pretty nice. They are fully voiced. Really only like 2 voiced cutscenes, one at the beginning and one at the end, but they are fully voiced, and different characters actually have different end bosses, which is pretty interesting. So depending on who you pick, you'll fight someone different at the end. And all the fights have like this little cutscene intro. These don't change depending on what character you pick. They're just this, like every time I fight Hokuto, she's gonna have this same cutscene in arcade mode. But still, I do kind of like these. And overall, if you are the type of fighting game player that plays arcade mode, I think this has a pretty good one. And then the final source of kind of single player content in this game is the mission mode. This is probably the single player mode I was most disappointed with, mainly because these are just way too easy. First of all, there's only 5 of them. I mean, okay, technically there's 8, but you can see 3 of them are literally just like the auto combos that you get when you switch to smart style. So there's really only 5 per character, and they're all very easy. So like, obviously this is Terry's first trial, so it's supposed to be easy, but this is Terry's final trial, his trial number 5. And this one does look a bit more complicated than some of the trial 5s that I've tried, but still, like, I bet I can do this in like 1 try, 2 tries maybe. There's 1 try. Hold on, let me try again. Okay, there we go. It was like my 4th or 5th try. Yeah, they're really not that hard. And, there are much harder combos out there. Like if you look at Twitter, I'm not saying it needs to be like some crazy challenge, but like most of these don't even really teach you like your character's actual B&B. Like Marco has kind of been the character that I'm playing the most, and I'm pretty sure none of his trials teach you the fact that you can do 2 DP breaks in 1 combo if you do DP and EX-DP. None of the trials show you this, and I'm pretty sure this is important for like a lot of his best B&Bs, because you can do it like this. But yeah, this isn't covered in any of his trials, so there's definitely some major gaps in terms of what the trials teach you. And also there's a really annoying thing in these trials, which is you can see your rev gauge doesn't actually reset. Your rev gauge just is like normal. It doesn't quick reset. So to reset your rev gauge, you actually have to press the reset button. So if you forget to press reset, like you'll be on track for like the perfect run, and then you'll burn out and you won't be able to do the combo, which, yeah, like obviously you can just press the reset button if you remember to do that. But if you forget, it's really annoying. So I hope they fix that minor oversight. But yeah, I think for like an absolute beginner, these combo trials might be helpful, but again, these aren't really your real B&Bs. Oh, and by the way, I've been playing this game mostly on stick, but there's another input device I've been trying, which are these official City of the Wolves snack box micros. You can see I got the BJNA. I had to represent. Yeah, these are really sick, and the game plays really well on leverless as well. And I know Diaphone has been playing on pad, so I think whatever input device you prefer, you won't really have a problem with this. The inputs are lean in enough that even on D-pad and analog stick, you can get it done in this game. Okay, but a couple other modes that were not in the beta. One of them is color edit, and I will tell you, this mode is gas. This mode is sick. I wish every fighting game had this. I feel like the reason they don't is because they want to sell you more skins. But this game, they just let you edit the color however you want, and you can do patterns and stuff, which, I haven't really been crazy about how some of the patterns look, but, the option is there. I think it's really cool. And, yeah, I absolutely love that this is here, so you can have a super unique character that no one else out there on the internet matches. Yeah, really, really amazing feature that you just don't expect to see in fighting games these days. Also, jukebox mode, which is, a feature that we ask for in games these days, but we don't always get it. Remember, SF6 had the problem where they were selling tracks in the game that you couldn't use in online, which is insane. But this game, it's not a problem. Be careful. You don't want to use the playlist setting. I was tricked into trying to use this setting. This is just if you want to listen to the music by itself. What you really want is music settings. You go to custom list, and then pretty much you can pick any situation. Like when I play on this stage, I want to listen to this song, and you can pick songs from all throughout the history of Fatal Fury here and of King of Fighters as well. You know, we can go to whatever Fatal Fury game we want here, and then they also have the SNK other titles where they have some music from stuff like KOF 14, 15, SNK Heroines. Yeah, obviously this is an amazing feature as well, and I would say it's quite well done. I love the fact that you can select multiple tracks for the same stage and then randomize it, so like you won't get bored of hearing the same track over and over. You can have it set up however you want. Fantastic feature, and I think if they want to sell DLC albums for this, like let me do KOF 13 music or something, because that's not in this game, I think it would be totally fair, and I would honestly pay for it. So very, very well done on the jukebox. Okay, so overall, talking about the single player, I think it has above average single player for a fighting game for sure. I think Episodes of Southtown is fun. The combo trials were disappointing, but overall it feels, I would say, like a pretty full-featured game, which is pretty impressive coming from SNK. I feel like this is by far the game that feels like it's the most worth the money out of basically anything they've ever made. I really think so. But let's talk about some of the downsides. So one of my big complaints with the betas was the menus are very confusing and very cumbersome, and that is definitely still true. Like, just navigating through can be very confusing, and everything feels very slow. So like, for example, when I go to battle settings here and I want to change my character, when I press right to scroll through here, it doesn't actually scroll until I let go of holding right. So it feels like it takes forever to scroll through here and select the character I want. And kind of every menu in the game feels like this. It's just like doing anything in this game feels unintuitive, and it feels like it takes a lot of effort to actually change these settings. There's other kind of annoying stuff where, like, okay, so I pick Marco and I go, okay, let me do color 3. Okay, I select color 3. But then I think, oh, I selected the wrong SBG ratio. I actually want it in the middle. So I go back, I pick Marco again. You have to scroll all the way through to pick Marco again. And then I go down and I do the middle ratio. But then it reset my color. It didn't remember that I had picked color 4. So, okay, let me open this again. Go over to Marco, pick color 4, scroll down, pick the ratio. Okay, now we're good. So yeah, like everything in this game is kind of like that, where it's just a little bit more annoying than it needs to. And one of the biggest problems I think with this game's menus is like playing with friends just kind of feels impossible to me. All right, so to play with friends, you cannot use the built-in Steam friends list. It does not work. You have to use the in-game friends list, which uses your user code here. So you have a friend code, and to send this to your friends, there is no copy-paste. You must manually type out your friend code, send it to your friend. They have to go into their game, manually type it into the game, and then you can add each other as friends, and that's how you play together, which is really bad. At SF6, if you click on your friend's Steam profile and they're playing the game that you want to play and they're in a lobby, there's just a button that says Join Lobby, and you can just click it. Or they can copy a link to their lobby and send it to you, and you just click the link in Discord or whatever, and it opens the lobby in-game for you. These are all Steam built-in features, so it's pretty disappointing that this game doesn't have them, and it's really hard to play together with friends. Also, the way that you join rooms is really crazy. So, like, you make a custom room, and if you want your friends to be able to join it, you have to send them the room ID, and obviously the room ID is also not copy-pastable. So yeah, playing with friends is a major obstacle and one of the main things that I hope they improve. But once you actually manage to get into a match with your friends, or when you just play online, like I said, the matchmaking times seem quite good now. Once you get into it, this game is just so fun to play. I think the gameplay is where this game shines. I think especially if you are an avid fighting game player, if you play a game like SF6, Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, if you play those games a lot and you're looking for something different, I think this game is a really amazing choice because it really does feel like a breath of fresh air. I've said this a lot of times. It does not feel like it is following a lot of the trends that a lot of modern games do in terms of making the game easy. It's kind of funny I say they're not following trends when, like, low-key, they kind of copied the drive gauge from SF6 with the rev gauge, you know? Like, you start with the ability to use all of it, and then once you use too much of it, you go into burnout and can't use it anymore. Like, it's pretty similar. And they have this new mechanic, Rev Blow, which is very similar to Drive Impact. I mean, it's like an armored gap-closing move. that you can do your own rev blow back on reaction to counter it. So yeah, it's a little bit similar, but besides that, I feel like they are kind of staying true to that old school SNK feeling, and in a lot of ways, like, the mind games in this game just feel so exciting and so interesting compared to a lot of modern games. Like, even just like how you jump at the opponent is such an interesting little mind game. You know, obviously you have your normal jump and you have your short hop, but like, depending on where you press the button, if you press the button really deep, you'll be able to combo off your jump in. But if you press the button high, you won't be able to combo off it, but you'll be able to interrupt the opponent's anti-airs. And you have to mix up your timing to play around just defend, which is such an interesting and powerful mechanic. Honestly, like, playing offense and defense are both super fun in this game, and one of the reasons for that is because of just defend and guard cancel. Like, pressure in this game is really crazy because of the feint mechanic that allows you to cancel your normals. So like, the opponent can make you block all day, but if you're really good at just defend and you have a read on what your opponent wants to do, like, you can really make them think twice. And like, brain dead offense just doesn't really work in this game because of just defend. It reminds me a lot of Third Strike. I know the Mark of the Wolves Third Strike comparisons are a little bit overdone, but it is that type of feeling where it's like nothing is unconquerable because defensive mechanics are so strong. If you know what the opponent's going to do, you always have an answer to it. And the mind games in this game just feel insane. Like, I've played long sets with people where we just have this intense back and forth. Like, I figure out that I can use just defend to deal with this string that they're doing, but then they know that I'm going to just defend, so they mix up their timing. But then now that I know that they're mixing up their timing, I can start like throwing in reversals and stuff. Like, it's just ridiculously fun. I think this game's gameplay is really, really good. So far, this is probably the most fun I've had with an SNK game since KOF 13. Again, I know, like, KOF 13 glazing is a little bit overdone, but it was my first KOF game and I have such fond memories of it, and this is really giving me like warm fuzzies of nostalgia of like, man, this used to be what fighting games played like back in the day. There's no drive rush in this game. Yeah, there is a drive impact like mechanic with the rev blow, but it's, you know, definitely a bit scaled down, and overall this game feels a lot more old school and a lot more honest, I think, than a lot of modern games. Okay, so overall thoughts on the game, and really, like, should you buy the game? I think overall the game has exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways. But it is still very flawed in some ways. It still has that SNK jank in terms of how the menus work, how the online is designed. I didn't really talk about the ranked system, but I think the ranked system is pretty poor in this game. Like, it's just very boring. You just go like C4, C3, C2, like, and there's no end game. Once you get to the max rank, you're just going to be done forever. There's going to be nothing to do. And rank is across all your characters, so it's not even like, oh, I can enjoy the thrill of ranking up with a new character when I switch. So yeah, not crazy about the rank system either, but besides those few annoying things that I've talked about in this video, I think this game is very good for a fighting game. I think, first of all, if you are already an active fighting game player, you like fighting games, you've played multiple fighting games, you should definitely pick this up. I see it as a bit of a no-brainer. This game is just so good as a fighting game that you should pick it up if you like fighting games. Also, if you are any kind of SNK fan, obviously it's a no-brainer that you should pick this up. Yeah, like, there's a lot of story in the game between having arcade mode story and episodes of Southtown story for every character. Plus, there are a lot of like fan service things in terms of like, you can unlock secret art. I really like this mode where it has like a little description of like all these old stages. Like, the characters have like a little bit of dialogue about all these old stages, which I think is just really cool. You can like look at all this old art as you play episodes of Southtown. You unlock these like unique art pieces that I think are pretty cool as well. So you can play the game for a long time just like unlocking stuff. You've got these little conversations between characters that are fully voiced, which are kind of cool as well if you're into the lore. So if you're an SNK fan, absolutely, obviously, you should pick this up. Also a no-brainer. But what about if you're not a fighting game fan? Or a better question, should this be your first fighting game? Now, that is a tough one. It's a little bit tricky for me to say yes, because I do think this game has a lot of friction. Just getting the game to work and getting into matches can feel a little bit difficult. I think if you're willing to put up with that, the game will be very rich and rewarding because the gameplay is so good, and features like jukebox and color edit can keep you coming back and kind of rekindle your interest, maybe if you get a little bit bored of getting destroyed online. To be honest, Street Fighter 6 casts a very big shadow. That game is so seamless. That game has definitely the most impressive single player, I think, of any fighting game with the World Tour mode. It also has modern controls that, in my opinion, are a lot better done than the modern controls in this game, which I don't really consider to be particularly viable. So it is a little bit hard for me to recommend this as your first game over SF6, especially when I'm sure you can get SF6 for much cheaper these days. But if you're the type of player who can persevere through a little bit of annoyance and you want a deep and rewarding fighting game experience, I think this is absolutely the one to go with right now. I think it's a really fantastic game, and I hope it does well and we can continue to see it at tournaments for a while. So yeah, those are, pretty much my thoughts. I think I would like to make a lot of content for this game because I am having so much fun playing it. I would love to do a ranked grind series, maybe getting to the top rank with my boy Marco, or maybe with another character if I find one that I also like as much. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So if you guys want to see more content for this game, be sure to like and subscribe. I don't usually shout that out, but it really does make a big difference. So if you do that, that will show me that the demand is there for more City of the Wolves content. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.